Hey, Rawlicious souls, I've got the amazing Jerry Snider on with us today, all the way from Texas, and he's an author, an entrepreneur. He's got the confidence through health, and he's recently gone raw, fully raw vegan. Are you
Yep.
pretty? Yeah,
Yep.
amazing. So we've got lots to share today. So could you share, Jerry, your journey in going to raw vegan and what what you have experienced and why you've gone raw vegan?
Yeah. So I started out in college, basically. I got my degree in exercise physiology. So I've always been interested in health, in like helping people get better health. And I'm an athlete, and so sports has always been a part of it. But I went the corporate route for a while. About 6 years ago, I started back into like, okay, I need to, well, maybe 7 years ago, I guess now, but I need to really start helping people with their health again. And so as I started digging into it, and I'm like, that's where one of my first book came from, with Confidence Through Health, is that I kept getting asked the same questions, and I'm like, no, that's wrong. No, that's wrong. These myths that are out there are so wrong. And so I wrote the first book, and and I wrote it in like, not gonna lie, I wrote it in like 21 days. Um,
Wow.
and it was just like poured out, like, okay, here's everything, right?
Yeah.
Um, and but then I kept studying, I kept researching, and I kept looking into, okay, like what, because people would come back and say, okay, well, you told me this, does it really fit for me, or doesn't work in my lifestyle, or whatever their issue was. And the more I got into, okay, let's figure out the nutrition piece, because I had the sports background, I had the physio background, all that stuff. The more I started researching nutrition, the more it came back to, we aren't eating enough plants. We aren't eating enough plants. We aren't eating enough vegetables, fruits, nuts. Like, we need to get more. And the more I went that way, so I was like, okay, I gotta go vegetarian for a little bit. And then I was like, okay, I might as well go vegan because it seems to be working. And I'm an athlete and my performance kept getting better. And so I was like, I'm not going to argue with that for sure. And then it was just getting connected with different people that are raw vegan, and through my podcast and interviewing people. And I remember one of the first episodes, I had somebody that was like, why don't you just go fruitarian? Why don't you just try it out? And I was like, at the time, I think I was vegan, but I was like, okay, whoa, that seems like such
Yeah.
a big step. That was 3 years ago. And now here I am, where it's like, that's almost what I am. And it's crazy to think of it, but it's so much, like the experience that I've gotten from it, it's so much better for me, and the people that I've helped get to that point. Like, they notice it too. And they're like, oh my gosh, my recovery's quicker. Like, I don't have the aches and pains that I used to have. All these different things that, like, the standard diet, standard Western diet, American diet, like, feeds us
Yeah.
all this. It's not just the food, but it's all the illnesses and the issues that we don't need.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you see a big difference in, so you say about your recovery, even for
Mhm.
yourself, was it a big notice even from vegan to raw? Did you notice?
Oh yeah, yeah. And it's funny because I first went. People think I'm nuts, but I first went raw on Thanksgiving, which in America is like, the most crazy thing you can think of doing, is on this
Yeah.
day where it's like, eat whatever you want and as much as you want and celebrate.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, no, I think today's the day. And
Wow.
so I did that through the end of December, through the end of the year. So like 5, 6 weeks. And then I said, okay, well, I'm going to go back and see, was this just an anomaly that my body just felt better at this time or whatever. And so I went back to just being, added some cooked food in. Um and by the middle of February, I was like, I'm not recovering the same. I'm my I lost a little bit of weight, like, I wasn't expecting to, but I lost, and I say, like, I'm in like 3 or 4 pounds.
Mm.
When I first went raw, I gained that right back. Like, and I'm not overweight by any stretch. Like, I'm a fit athlete, but just that, to notice that and go like, well, wait a minute, that was weird. Like,
Yeah.
in and when you research it, you start looking at it, it's like, okay, well, because the cooked food takes longer to process, it takes longer to go through, and it it sits in your gut longer, and so obviously you're going to gain weight because you've got more that you're holding on to. And again, not that I'm like, and I tell my wife this all the time, because she's like, you're losing weight again. I'm like, no, I'm not losing weight. It's my body's changing physique. I'm getting more muscle because I'm continuing to work out, and the body's using the nutrients properly, and I'm just not holding on to anything. And
Yeah.
so my waistline looks like I'm losing weight, but it's not. It's just because I'm not holding on to anything. I'm going to the bathroom more frequently because that's what plants make you do. And
Mm,
I'm okay with that. Like, I'd rather have that than have food sitting in my gut for, 18 or 72 hours fermenting and
yeah.
causing problems.
And sometimes not even coming out, staying in
Right.
there for years. And
Right.
it's interesting because the perception of most people now, like the standard average size in the UK is for a female is about 10 to size 10 to 12.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking at others when they've lost weight, especially on this lifestyle. Oh, they're too skinny, but we're
Right.
supposed to be lean beans and
Right.
agile and able to run and do activities all day,
Right.
without feeling sluggish or slow and having those dips. So it's interesting the perception of the whole collective, the world. But I
Yeah.
feel there's a big shift now. Because they was doing all that fat acceptance and there's all,
Mm-hmm.
it's very screwed. And yeah, when you see people losing a lot of weight in this lifestyle, oh no, you're getting too skinny. But in
Right.
reality, we're supposed to be. We're supposed
Right.
to be fit, lean, slim.
Yep.
It's just
and
a
and and
perception.
it helps you look younger. It helps you with your
Yeah.
longevity. It helps. I mean, and studies have proven that, when you get to your telomeres of your DNA, that like plant foods will help them stay longer, which is basically what keeps you alive, because once those go away, then disease can just attack and your DNA get crumbled, and you start to fall apart. And so, it's a proven fact that all that works. But then also it's proven that if you and the thing that I think is frustrating for people is because they want a timeline, but there's not always a timeline. And so when you start eating in, whether it's a vegan or a raw vegan way, you will lose weight, like guaranteed. Like, you'll lose weight. It may not happen as fast as you want it to,
Mm.
because of so and so that did it and lost it fast, but you're going to lose weight because your body doesn't have to hang on to all the stuff that it's hanging on to, and it's getting the nutrients it needs. And so your cells are loving it. And so they're starting to flourish. And it's starting this. So the body says, okay, I can get rid of these fat stores. I can get rid of these toxins that I'm holding on to. I can get rid of all this other stuff I'm holding on to. And you start flushing it out. How long that takes is just different for every person, unfortunately. And there's factors in that, obviously your genetics, but also like what you ate to get to the place where you're at before you make that change, as a big piece of it too.
Yeah, some I do hear gain weight, but it's so many variables. Like, but eventually,
Mhm.
like same time, you lose weight, especially raw
Yep.
vegan.
Yeah.
And I know there's those that who like to build muscle and want to be
Mhm.
big in size. They some of them panic, and I have some clients that are wanting to gain muscle, but I
Right.
said that's again, it's another perception is looking at
Right.
like those that are in the gym that are large, they've got a lot of
Yeah.
inflammation from the cooked food. So it's not actually
Right.
how really we want to be, because that's not a true picture of health. Health is
Right.
really, the slim and lean. Like
Yeah.
you're a distance runner. I mean, how far do you run then? How
On
often?
an average week, I run pretty much every day. Like last year, I took 6 days off. This year I've had, I think, 5 or 6 days off so far.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
I mean, I run pretty much every day.
Yeah.
On average about 40 to 42 miles a week.
Yeah. Wow.
So, I mean, I run a lot.
Yeah.
It averages to like 6 miles a day, so a 10K a day. Um, and it's fast. It's like some of it is really fast. But one of the things, and it's funny you had mentioned that, because one of the things, I saw a friend the other day that I hadn't seen in probably, I mean, probably 2 months at least. And we hugged, and he after we hugged, he was like, he grabbed my bicep and he was like, dude, you've been working out a little bit more, haven't you? And I was like, not any more than normal, but it's a total misconception that you cannot gain muscle
Yeah.
eating a raw vegan way or eating a vegan way. It's a total misconception because I mean, I put on muscle and
And
and,
easier.
and I have to.
It's
And it's
easier, isn't
easier.
it?
It is easier.
Without the
Yes.
inflammation,
Correct.
you get
Yep.
really lean and strips
Yep.
the fat very
Yep.
fast.
Yeah. And a lot of that, like that inflammation, and that you, if you go in, you like, and you can tell by people by their neck or their face, they're just like they're swollen, because
Yeah.
their body can't handle the stuff, and they're trying to get it, they're trying to flush it out, but it's getting clogged up and it's getting jammed in because their guts in such an enormous like bind, basically, because it's slowed down.
Yeah.
And so you can't get rid of the stuff that you need to get rid of. And so you swell up and you hang on to it. And then you take, I always think it's funny because bodybuilders, like they'll go through, or wrestlers or MMA fighter, they go through their cut to make sure that they're at weight and they look good and they fit, and all that stuff. And what do they do when they go through their cut? Like they're cutting out all the stuff that just swells them up. And it's like, why don't
Yeah.
you just live that way?
Yeah.
Like, why
Yeah.
don't you just live that way?
Yeah. And for the health, there's not just
Yeah,
looks, it's the
right.
health. Yeah. How many calories do you concern yourself with calories? Or do
Not at
you
all.
feel no, see, I love it. Like this is
Not at
something
all.
I'm really passionate about, especially
Because,
more on
and I,
those working with the women that have got eating,
yeah.
I've come from a distorted way of eating. Most of us have.
Mhm.
Always eat 6, 7 meals a day. That's where I've
Right.
come from. Constantly stuffing, non-stop eating or
Yep.
restriction. But
Yeah.
I mean, how often is it like a routine?
Well, I mean, there's a slight routine, but it's based on like when I run. I've always had a more of a like a sensitive stomach from a standpoint of exercise, and if I've got too much in there, um, and so I try to avoid having stomach cramps or any of that kind of stuff when I run. So I usually avoid eating somewhere in the 2.5 hours before I run
Yeah,
or exercise. Um, and so if I'm running in the morning, well, that makes it easy. I just get up,
yeah,
I might drink some water or something, but then just like go run and then come back and eat. Um, but I usually don't like, I'm also not somebody that just, and for somebody that's trying to lose weight, it also is like, there's a total misconception that you eat right after you exercise.
yeah,
Like I'll go run and it might be another 2 hours before I eat anything. Um, and that's not from a weight loss standpoint, or I'm worried or concerned that I'm going to gain weight. It's just that my body's processing the other things that I've just did, and I'm like, I don't need it.
yeah,
Um, which again goes back to, if I feed my cells properly and I have the right things in storage in my muscles, in my liver, then from a nutrition standpoint, then I don't have to be starving to go, I've got to grab something right now. And so there's a slight routine, but I also listen to my body and say, okay, like what, if I'm not too concerned about, I usually have big meals, unless we're traveling or something and we go out to eat or something like that, then I'll enjoy a salad that's a little bit bigger than what I normally eat. But I and this always freaks everybody out when they hear like how much I run, because it's obviously burning calories. But I would bet that I somewhere consume somewhere around 1,200 to 1,500 calories a day,
hmm
which is like, people go, oh my gosh, how in the
under
world,
eating. That's what most will think. Yeah,
are you not falling apart? Are you not like just, and 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 at the same time, in a 2 month span, I gain muscle, I gain strength, I gain, and it's because when you eat the way I eat, as far as being very skilled and dedicated into, okay, I need to make sure that I have a wide variety of fruits and vegetables, right? Like I can't just stick to one as far as from a performance standpoint. And so like I look at it and go, okay, I need to have 40 different vegetables, 40 different fruits and vegetables in a week's time. Well, if I get that, I guarantee you I'm getting every single vitamin and mineral that I need. Like there's no way I'm going to miss it.
mm.
Um, and if you're only feeding your cells what they need, you don't have to fill yourself with the other junk. And a lot of what people eat is your cells don't need it. And so that's where it's like, okay, well, you need to get, and I fully believe you need to get the 2,000 calories or whatever the standard, is, and whatever government says it is. Like, that's because they know you're going to eat crap. And so if you're going to eat crap, well, you got to eat enough to get some of the good stuff in there. Well, if you cut the crap out, all you need is the good stuff. You don't have to eat very much.
That's a good
you
way
know
of putting that. Yeah, you're right. And your body's more efficient. You don't need as
yeah,
much.
yeah. And so,
Especially,
and I've done like, and I've done this just from a trial and error standpoint, because the people that I coach, I try to always do whatever it is I'm going to try and coach them on before they do it, so that I can have the experience and knowledge of like, hey, this is what it felt like. And so I've done, I think as far as I went, and I'll clarify, I do not recommend this for like an athlete who is as lean as I am. But I wanted to go through it and experience it. And I think it was a 92-hour fast. Water, I did water and, what I did, water and tea and kombucha. And and that was it. And I was still
what
running
tea?
until
What
just
tea was that? Green
green tea, like
tea.
a matcha green tea.
Yeah. Was that to give the energy, like the
Yeah,
stimulus?
it was just to give a little bit more, just to make sure everything was,
Yeah.
but I was still running,
Yeah.
like, which is,
Wow.
not what you're supposed to do when you're not supposed to do a heavy load of exercise or anything. And right before I broke the fast, I went out for a run and I was like, okay, I made it like a mile and a half and was like, I'm out, I'm done. My body says no more. Um, and so I turned around, I came back. But I say all that to say, like, I know that fasting works. I know that the proper juice fasting works, the proper water only fasting works. All those things work to help you cleanse and get things out. So from a like, I need to make a change. Okay, this is where you can start. And is it a little brutal to just like go cold turkey and like do it? I mean, it can be mentally, but that's part of the challenge of the whole thing anyway. Like, you got to
Mm.
break free of the advertisement. You got to break free of what they are telling you is the proper way to do things, to be able to come around to the other side and go, okay, I see. I don't really need to eat that much. And I don't need all this other crap that they're telling me. I don't need this high amount of protein that they're telling me I need.
Yeah.
I don't need all these things, because a lot of times your body's going to create what you need based on the other ingredients you feed it. And
Mhm.
the ingredients you need to create all that stuff is in the plant material. I
Yeah.
mean, it's plain and simple.
How long you been vegan? So you've been raw vegan 3 years
No,
or
I've been
vegan?
raw vegan for just like
Oh, only
7 months.
short. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was it. And
yeah.
vegan 3 years, isn't
But
it?
I've been vegan. No, I've been vegan for probably 5 years now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Um,
was the main reason to go vegan, was that health or ethical reasons?
it was more health. It's what's interesting is I have come around on more of the ethical side of things. I wasn't expecting that piece. Because when I first went vegan, I mean, I literally, I remember sitting down with people and they were like, oh, wait a minute, you're vegan? Oh, wait, what? And I'm like, eat as many hamburgers you want, eat as many steak. Like, I don't care, eat it. It doesn't bother me, And now I'm like, okay, it bothers me a little bit. Like, not enough to have that conversation at the meal, or, like to confront them in an aggressive way or anything like that. But to have that conversation afterwards of, hey, if have you thought about eating more plants? Have you thought about what it would do? Um, have you thought about cutting back on, the animal products? And I coach that way now. I coach that way to coach people off of animal products, versus before it was like, hey, if you want to do that, I can put you a plan together that's going to be nutritious. It's still going to
Mhm.
be 85% plant based. It's going to push you in that direction. But now I push everybody a little bit harder, because
Yeah.
it's in we just don't need to do what we're doing as far as the way, especially the way the cattle industry and the dairy industry are run and done. We just don't need to be that aggressive towards pushing that agenda, I think.
Yeah, unnecessary. And as we're
Yeah.
finding out, for health, not for definitely for not survival, health,
Right.
and for
Yeah.
the environment and animals as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And your
And
clients,
and then
sorry.
you get into climate, and you get into, like you said, the environment and all that. And it's, the more you dig into it, the more you see the truth of what is really happening,
Yeah.
and I mean, just in the last couple of days, I saw a report that said, we had the highest temperature reading on average over the whole earth happened just a couple of days ago, highest ever recorded. And they said, we're expecting tomorrow to be to break that. And so it's like, people that are out there saying, oh, climate change is nothing, or this is nothing, or that's not leading to this. It's like, when you really start to dig into it, you go, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, it is. And we don't need, that's the other thing, is that we don't need, the way that the agricultural system is built and has been established and so heavily driven towards the animal side of it. We just don't need that.
Yeah.
And just to be able to survive and to be able to thrive and to be able to live, a healthy life, we just don't need all of that.
Yeah. I think a good standpoint for me is always that it's a win-win for everyone. And
Right.
if that, then for me, every day I feel good about my core, the foundation of where I
Right.
stand in the world.
Right.
So, yeah. And that's why I love bringing you on the channel. So, with your podcast, then, you're bringing on mostly, is it really all vegans and raw vegans, or do you still bring in other health enthusiasts? Or
I
does
bring
that?
other, yeah, I bring other people that are experts in their field of try to hit things that are, uh, you know, things that are missing from people's lives that they don't know that are missing. And so I had an expert on that talked about glutathione and why people need to be able to look at the minerals and look at the vitamins that they're getting, and make sure that not only are they getting them from a good source, which almost 100% of the time is a plant-based source. It's very rarely are you looking at vitamins or minerals that you're trying to supplement with and going, I'm getting that from an animal product. And so and it's looking at ways that people can gain confidence through being healthier. And so having people on that are looking at, what kind of mental edge can I give myself if I'm dealing with depression or, issues, which a lot of times comes from not just the current state of health that you're in. If you're, not happy with the way that you look in the mirror or what's on the scale, yes, that can lead to depressive thoughts and bad thoughts and negative things, and can put you in that spiral. But as you know, like, what you eat creates your neurotransmitters. And if you don't have the right ones or enough neurotransmitters, it doesn't matter how positive you try to be, you don't have enough going on in your brain to actually make that stick and continue on with it. And so I try to bring people on that are going to help people in that way. And most of them, even if I don't know ahead of time, most of them start talking about, oh, I'm vegetarian, or I'm 90% plant-based, or I'm vegan, or and it's like, oh wow, cool, I didn't know that beforehand. But through the research of what you do, I find that out. And that I think is also a very telling piece when you have experts on in whatever piece of health that they're in, and then they sit there and say, oh yeah, and I do this for myself too. And I'm like, oh, well, if you're an expert and you're doing that for yourself, that should tell everybody else something.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a pattern, there's a link, isn't there, with
Yeah.
what they're consuming, you are what you eat. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Just to go back on what your food then. So what do you like eat generally on a day to day? What would be your go-to food?
Yeah. So it's funny because I looked at, and it's to the normal, like I say normal, to the average person out there who is used to, a fast food restaurant, or, a heavy, like processed meals, um, it really doesn't even look like a meal the way I eat.
Mm.
Because I mean, for dinner tonight, I had a banana, an avocado, some watermelon, some blueberries, um, some mulberries, and some goji berries. Like,
Nice.
and and that's it.
Yeah.
And the only thing that hit the plate was the watermelon because it's the only thing that it was a big enough piece that I put down and I was like, okay, I'm gonna eat that and scoop it out. But everything else is just eating out of my hand. And I'm like, I've gotten to where I do that so much now that it's like looking back, going, this is the way we ate eons ago, like years ago. Like when we didn't have the conveniences of a home, we didn't have a refrigerator, we didn't have we went out and picked something and ate it. As we picked it, we ate it and we moved on with life. And if we felt like we needed something else, we went pick something else and ate it. And so that's, do I have salads? Absolutely, of course I do. And so that occasionally, there's, I'd say probably three to four nights a week I have a salad. But then it'll vary between what it's got in it. Avocado a day is a staple because it's just too important.
Yeah.
And I try to do, especially when it's in season, I try to do watermelon 3 or 4 times a week. But blueberries every day, those are a staple. And the reason why, and I saw something that just came out on this, that I read, that if you feel the biggest pick me up, if you feel yourself draining, especially in that afternoon time, like, oh my gosh, I'm at work and I'm drained, and so many people go to the candy bar or the soda drink with tons of caffeine in it and sugar. They go for that and then have the sugar crash. And just a handful of blueberries
I love
will
blueberries.
it makes a massive impact on your
Yeah.
cognitive ability within about an hour of eating them. Your
Yeah.
cognitive ability will increase 20 to 30%. And I'm like, if I'm at work and my cognitive ability increases 20 to 30%, I'll take that every day.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and it's those are staples that I have to have every day. Um, I do bananas based on, and I know that some
Gonna
people
say
say they're high sugar. You got to be careful. You got to be that. But it's I know you
yeah.
like, but I mean there's so much nutrition in there, and so I don't do a banana a day necessarily, but I can tell on days when I'm like, okay, I need a banana because I exercised a little bit harder today or whatever the case may be. And then like I make sure that I do a beet juice every day. Um, and that's for recovery. So for those athletes out there that they're looking for how can I recover better? How can I beets are by far one of the best. I mean,
Anti-inflammatory
yeah,
brings down.
it's
Yeah.
anti-inflammatory, it brings everything up, but it's so good for your blood, it's so good for
Yeah.
helping your heart. And so yeah, I get to where when I'm really in a heavy season of exercise and I'm really, I know, because there's times where I'll go and run 55, 60 miles a week. And so those are heavy mileage. And so I might drink 40 ounces of beet juice in a day,
Yeah.
and I will 100% say, yes, it took me about 30 days before I could I can just drink it now. Because those first
Yeah.
30 days of drinking it, it's like, oh my gosh, what is this stuff? This is
Yeah.
a little bit steep to try and ingest, um, but now it's just and most people that I know it because I'll walk
Yeah.
around with my thermos and they're like, what's in there? And I'm like, they're like, it's either water or beet juice, right? I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
one of the two.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just too valuable. And so and there's things that just they're so nutritious and there's so much what your body wants. And I know it sounds like, okay, well, that sounds like it could be a lot of money because you're eating all these fresh vegetables and avocados, or at least in the US, the price is ridiculous. Um, but again, if you're only eating 1,200 calories,
Yeah.
you're saving on junk that you're not having to pay for. And so it
It's worth
really
the
doesn't come out
investment.
more expensive. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But even still, your health is the priority of your
Yeah.
health. Yeah.
Yep.
And do you have nuts and
And
seeds? Do you have any of those on your salads or anything?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I make my own mix. Like I just go and get, from the organic bins, and make my own mix of, I've got pumpkin seeds because it's highly nutritious, especially for males. Walnuts for your brain, uh, almonds, pistachios, which some people are like, don't do that. I'm like, you kidding me? There's so much nutrition.
Yeah.
Cashews. Occasionally I'll do macadamia nuts. Occasionally I'll do Brazil nuts, sunflower seeds, like, and you just mix them all up. And occasionally I'll put in some cranberries, just if I'm like, I need a little sweetness to it.
Love cranberries.
Um,
Mm.
but and yeah, so I'll go and I'll buy all those, mix them all up, and that's usually something that I'll go through. If I need to, I'll just grab a handful and down they go. And um, if I need a snack or something that I'm feeling a little bit, and that's usually that's probably something, on the nut side. I would say usually 5 days a week.
Yeah.
I have that as well. So, and whether it's sometimes it's sprinkling on a salad or, whatever the case may be, but that's, my go-to, when I travel, when I go on a trip,
Mm. Yeah.
it's
Easy.
because, other things can be messy in the car or get bruised or messed up. So I just, big bag of my raw nuts right there.
Mm.
I did get stopped at the airport for having those in my bag. Because they were
Mhm.
like, you can hide something in there. I'm like, okay, fine. Like, there's nothing
Yeah.
hidden in this bag of nuts. But, because it wasn't a store-bought bag. So you got to be careful, I guess, occasionally with that.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, when you find those things and you're like, and you start looking at it from a nutrition standpoint, like I have, as far as like, where am I getting my minerals? What am I getting my vitamins? But also, like, what are the things that are proven to not just help me right now, but proven to
Mhm.
help me 30
Oh,
years from now, 40 years from now, to set my body up properly.
yeah.
Because one of the things that I decided right about, probably like right after I went vegan, I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm a goal oriented person. I'm going to put a date out there, or that I'm going to live to this. That's my goal. And so I want to live to 140.
Wow.
Um, and so it's like, okay, well, I look at that and I go, I got a lot of years left if I'm going to live
Yeah.
that long. And so I got it. And there's only one of these. So it's like, I got to take care of this body and make sure that it gets there in one piece. And, and so there's a little bit of, okay, I want to eat this because it's going to fill me for today. It's going to take care of my exercise. It's going to take my recovery. It's going to do all those things that I need today. But also, is it getting me the 90 years down the road that I got to get?
Yeah. Longevity.
Yep.
Definitely. Yeah. And being, when you're that age, being still fit, at least not suffering and struggling all the
Right.
way through. Yeah, it's a good
Right.
motivator because those that are fairly healthy feel like, oh, yeah, I can get away with it or eat these. But really, are you really nourishing your
Mm-hmm.
body? So you've got a really good mindset on nourishing. So instead of feeling like food is more of a comfort, you've got more of a
Right.
nourishing
Yep.
attitude, which is fantastic. And not everybody has that. I won't say I
Right.
used to have that. And still at times I want my comforts and I want to numb out. Do
Sure.
you ever
Sure.
have that experience? Do you get cravings?
Occasionally I do. The nice thing though is that most of the cravings I get, like you can knock it out with fruit, like,
Mm.
because it takes care of that. And yes, it gives you a sugar rush, but it's a completely different aspect. And I talk about this with people, is that, like, if you take processed sugar and sugar from any fruit and put it under a microscope in the cellular and then in the chemical formula side of things, it looks exactly the same. You won't be able to tell which is which.
Mm.
Like, it looks exactly the same, but your body knows which is the really cool thing about the way your body works. And so if you ingest even if you took the same number of grams of sugar and had it like just in a tablespoon or whatever, and had it in a spoon, you ingested that, and then later on you took a fruit that had the same number of grams, you ate the fruit, your body's going to act completely different
Yeah.
based on that. And the fruit is going to give you, it's going to give you a slight dopamine hit initially because of the sugar, but it's going to last a lot longer because the fiber that's connected to it, your body knows, oh, this is what I actually want, this is what I
Yeah.
can use, I can convert this and use it long term, and this is perfect. And so when I get those cravings, I'll grab a plum or a peach or something that I know is going to have, it's going to hydrate me. It's because okay, well, maybe my
Mhm.
craving is because I'm dehydrated, which is
Yeah.
very, very common, right? Um, and
Most of us are, aren't they? There was Lauren Lockman, who does a lot of the water
yeah,
fasting. He was saying like majority, 89% of the world are
yep,
dehydrated.
yep,
Even on the raw foods, we're not
mm-hmm,
having enough water. Yeah, so watery fruits is something I'm really stepping up. I've put a
yeah,
lot more into my diet. But yeah, you're right with the all the compact of the fruit. Like yeah,
yep,
it recognizes it and it converts so
yep,
differently because of all the fiber, the water, all what's in the makeup of the whole fruit.
right. And so that's why I think I've had people come to me and say, my doctor said I can't have fruit anymore, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, first off, I'm glad you found me. Secondly, you need a new doctor. Like, it's like it's ridiculous because, and they say it's because of the sugar cravings and it's because of this and I'm like, they don't understand how, they just hear sugar and they don't understand that it is completely different when it, interacts in your body, which is scary coming from a doctor. Um,
Yeah, they
but
don't
it's
really know though, do they? They're not trained.
no,
They're just
they're not
going
trained in
by what's
nutrition.
being filtered through and just
Mhm.
being fed just as long as they're, yeah, keeping on the system.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it's sad when I see friends, oh, I'm going on a no sugar diet,
Mhm.
and I say, you're cutting out fruit? Because I say, does that include fruit? Because some people just,
Yeah,
they'll still eat fruit, but they'll cut out other sugar, and there's no real
right.
clear term. And she says,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm cutting out fruit. And I'm like, why? This is like life force, natural, the most
Yeah.
natural food for our
Yep.
vessel. And
Yep.
I get really, yeah, it disheartens me that they're so far from the plants and what our
Right.
body is designed to eat. And is this
Yeah.
a fear? Is what's being spread, isn't it? The fear of that
Oh yeah.
too much sugar. No, I'm glad you mentioned this. Like they're completely different in the body. They
Yep.
absorb and react differently in the body.
Yeah. And that's what you've got to know. In when it comes to vegetables and fruits, there's some differences obviously between like what you can eat and what I can eat and how it's going to affect our body based on what our gut makeup is, our gut microbiome, the bacteria we
Mm.
have. And so while, and it's not just the taste buds, right? It's not just like I don't like the taste of that fruit, but it's like, okay, that one upset my stomach. Whereas, and this can be for couples, right? Because obviously we don't have the same genes, we don't have the same bacteria makeup. And so it can very easily be something whereas, like my wife loves mangoes and would eat mangoes all day long if she could. And I'm like, I can have a couple of pieces and I'm like, I'm good. Um,
Mm.
whereas I can eat a whole cantaloupe in one sitting, like boom. And I did it. I actually did it last week for like, that was a meal. It was like, boom, I'm gonna eat a cantaloupe. And she won't touch it,
Yeah.
and so that's the nice thing though about if you look at it and go, okay, I need 40 different varieties
Mm.
of plants throughout a week, which is really easy to do if you're doing it over a week. It's really easy to do. Well, there's hundreds of varieties. And so you can easily find 40 that you like, and you're going to get a good mixture. It's not like it's not just, 40 different types of apples. It's getting that wide variety. And as soon as you do that, you're going to feed your cells everything they need.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even I'm curious. I think we discussed it on the last call we did when you interviewed me of fruitarians on mono meals like Eli
Mm-hmm.
and Orville Douglas and um, Anne Osborne, who I recently interviewed.
Hmm.
It's fascinating to see that they're even more simplistic.
Right.
Anne has a bit more variance, but Eli and Ovel, but they have changed their microbiome, their gut over
Right.
time, and they are succeeding on it. I wouldn't say there's a lot of people doing this, and that's why it's
Yeah.
interesting to see how others and experiment and explore. So I'm glad you mentioned, others may not react or feel
Right.
as the same, and we don't have to force ourselves. If something, that's what I've learned on this lifestyle, is to be much more nurturing and don't
Hmm.
compare yourself to your chapter to their chapter, or even still,
Right.
if you don't even want, like, you like the idea, but see if it's sustainable for you. But
Right.
you can still thrive and do well. Don't have that fear, and you go with where you're at. Because I imagine you have so many different variants of clients, because
Oh
you
yeah.
work with athletes and
Yep.
sedentary, those that
Yep.
just need to shift some weight and
Yeah.
improve their health. So you meet them where you're at, and where do you find the real struggle is? I suppose everyone is so different, but do you
Hmm.
feel it's the conditioning of the what we've been told? I think the biggest fear is like, where do you get your protein? Where do you get this? And rightly so, people want to question things, but I
Sure.
feel the biggest fear is yeah, not really being healthy. But we're proving like there's a lot of
Yeah.
lies being
Right.
spread.
Right.
I don't know if you want to
And
expand on some of that.
I think fear is a big one, and it's the fear that I see from people is a lot more of like they don't want to stand out. They don't want to because it's different. It's weird, like
Yeah.
unfortunately, and
Hmm.
and and it's difficult only from the standpoint of like I do a lot of networking events, and so if I go to a networking event and it's a lunch, they're going to have what you would expect, like a buffet with, some sort of either a chicken or a beef or, in vegetables that are cooked in butter. And, it's like in the salad's going to have cheese and salt and dressing on it and all this stuff. And it's like the discipline and the confidence in yourself to be able to say, I can go to this meeting and not eat, and that's not going to bother me. And the
Yeah.
smell from somebody else's plate is not going to bother me, and I'm going to be okay. And I think that's part of the fear of like, because at first, when I first started doing that, people were like, "Aren't you eating? Like, do you want me to get you a plate?" I'm like, "No, I'm fine. I ate before I came." And I used to come up with excuses about like, "Oh, I'm getting ready to go run," or "I'm good." And now it's just like, "No, I'm good." And they all
Yeah.
know like he doesn't eat this crap. He doesn't eat this crap. Like, and they'll say that you don't eat this crap. And I'm like, no, I don't. And like, you just called it crap and you're eating it. Like, so,
Yeah.
you know, it's funny, but I think that's a big piece of like that standing out, whether it's in a group in your community or in a family gathering is, that's a big piece of like, how do I do this and not stand out? Um, and really it comes down to having the confidence in yourself and being disciplined enough to be able to say, okay, I know that I'm going to this function, whatever it is. I'm going to have to eat something before I go so that my body knows that I'm not tempted and I'm not that the smell doesn't get to me. Um, and know that, you know what, okay, there might not be anything at all I can eat. And if that's the case, then if it drives me nuts and makes me hungry or whatever, I can either leave early or know that I'm going to have nuts in my bag or, have something in the car that I can go as soon as I get in the car, I can grab an apple and eat an apple or get something else. Um, and so it takes some discipline from the standpoint of the preparation piece of it, and if you
Yeah.
prepare for those situations, then they're really easy to get through.
Mm.
But especially when you're starting out, if you don't prepare for it, you'll stumble. And But one of the things I want to make sure everybody knows is like, especially when I'm coaching somebody is, and if you're working with somebody to help you with your nutrition and help you with your plan, they need to be somebody that's going to tell you like, hey, if you make a mistake, it's no big deal,
Yeah.
And
Don't
I
beat
met with
yourself
somebody the other
up.
day, and I said, and he's frustrated, and he's well overweight, and he was just like, I've tried so many things and I can't. And I said, look, here's the thing. I said, we're going to go through this, but you have to remember he's put a ton of pressure on himself, and he needs to lose a substantial amount. And I was like, let the pressure go. Like, don't be so, everything has to be perfect with my meals or it's not going to work. And then and a lot of people do that. If it's not perfect, oh, well, and then let's go get the half a dozen donuts and screw the whole day
Just
up.
do the whole day. Yeah, I used to be like that. All or nothing.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna do it, I'm
Yeah.
gonna do it. And if I don't,
Yeah.
it's all like eat what even worse. All the rubbish. I
Yeah.
used to do that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like once you
And
let go of that, it's so liberating and just see it as
yeah.
okay, I chose that. It's fine. I'm
And
here
so
for
I
the
tell him,
long
it's
run.
like one meal, unless you choke on something, right? Or you eat something that you're highly allergic to.
Mhm.
If those two things are out of the picture, one meal is not going to kill you.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to keel over dead an hour after eating a meal, unless you choke on something or you're highly allergic to it. And so take the pressure off and go like, and it's like, okay, I made a mistake. That's okay. Like, I put that at the end of my emails for all my clients. Like, if you make a mistake, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. We move on. Like, and I've had clients that have, at first they'll come and like, oh, I've got to confess I did this. I'm like, you don't have to confess. Like, we can
Mm,
talk about what was the stumbling block, what was the trigger, what was the issue that came up that
yeah.
caused that decision or that to happen. That's more important to deal with than I had two pieces of chocolate cake. Oops. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, you had the chocolate cake. Like, we move on with life. But like, what was the issue so that you know ahead of time the next time? If that made you feel bad that you had the chocolate cake, what's the issue so that we know ahead of it next time so we can go, okay, I'm going to a wedding. I know there's going to be cake. How can I avoid making that mistake if that's a mistake for you? And that's, and as because I'll admit I had mistakes, when I went vegan, obviously there was mistakes because there's so many
Mhm.
because at the time I
Oh,
was still eating
really?
processed food. I
Yeah.
was still eating processed food because there's plenty of processed foods that are vegan. But you sit there and you're like, oh, I'll eat this. And you're like, oh crap, I didn't realize it had that in it. Oh,
Yeah.
and you're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. And so you got to start over. And like, and I say start over, but it's just like, okay, well, if you're trying to designate a day that I went vegan, like, I'll tell you, yeah, I purposefully went vegan on January 1st, da da da, right? But it's like, okay, what was the truly last time that I had any animal product in my mouth?
Mm. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
harder to pick because you just don't
You
know
don't,
until
yeah.
you get
You
into it
stumble
more.
along. Yeah, I
Yeah.
always say, people get a bit tied up with the labels of vegan and raw vegan, and I'm like, oh, you can't be if you're eating a couple of what was it, peanuts, they're cooked. They have some now and
Mhm.
again. It's like they're cooked, and I'm like, well, depends on what peanuts you get, but I'm like, I
Right.
still I under that label because I know I'm a manifesting
Right.
individual as well, and language is very
Right.
important. So be now who you
Yeah.
want to be, even if you're not quite there. Or
Right.
you see vegan, I'm raw vegan. So for years, like yeah, my journey was really, 3.5, 4 years ago. But I do say raw vegan 3 years ago with
Mhm.
still cooked meals at time. I'm
Right.
raw vegan,
Right.
majority of it, you look at it, yeah, it's coming away from that pressure. We have this, especially those that are very strict and like, well, you can't class yourself as raw vegan or vegan. Well,
Mhm.
yes, I can because I want to live up to that
Right.
that way. That's who I want to
Right.
embody. So you live it now. So that's been a big shift in my journey is
Mhm.
embody that now. But I know now there'll be even times now I will have cooked food. Yeah,
Right.
but it's not going to be a daily regular occurrence. And if it
Right.
was, then I'd look at that's why I was interested. That's why I love your podcast where you get those on more about working with the mind. Because I feel it's a lot psychological,
Yeah.
a lot of it, our triggers, the traumas,
Yep.
the reasons why we turn to certain foods. There's so much more
Mm-hmm.
to it with the chemicals, obviously, and the physiological sides. Just is very important, but a lot of it is really working. We're more like life coaches, really. We're
Right.
working a lot of these patterns that
Yep.
aren't always ours, but the collectives, our families and friends, and they're not. It's not who we are. It's not who we
Right.
truly are. And it's shifting through that mindset of, okay, these are just little cycles that I'm in, that I react and I default
Mm-hmm.
to doing this behavior. But it's not going to be that way forever. Even though you feel like you're in it sometimes, you're like, I
Yeah.
keep doing that, I keep slipping up, and I
Yeah.
keep going to that. Okay, let's intervene. Let's look at some tools. And I bet you
Right.
have a myriad. We
Oh
as
yeah.
coaches, we have thousands of tools for
Yep.
all different individuals.
Yep.
And that's
Yep.
great to have these, because not one works for one, and maybe one works for one time and not for another. So
Right.
that's why I think from our journey, there's no real key, oh, we did this and this. No,
Right.
there is a few with this. A lot of my protocol is I have these, the power hour,
Mm-hmm.
like with the meditation and the reading and
Right.
the engagement.
Yeah. I love
Feel
that.
you're going to get that extra edge, and you're going to have a really
Yep.
big shift, especially at the start of your day. So there's
Yeah.
certain ones that we've found really help our clients
Mm-hmm.
move very fast. And there is,
Yep.
like, with the juice cleansing, and there's the water fasting. Obviously, you can build
Yep.
up to that, but there's a lot of big turning points with certain tools.
Yeah.
But it all depends on the individual and where they're at.
Right. And and one of the tools that I use with people is breathing techniques, and
Yeah.
there's different ways to do that as well. Like there's but deep breathing, and from a mindset shift standpoint, deep breathing can change your mindset like in a matter of 30 seconds.
Mm.
And and it's something that, it's funny, I started doing with my daughter when she was little, like, and she's 13 now. And like, because she has a little bit of anxiety, and so she would get something, she's like 3 4 years old, something happens, she, I'm like, stop, breathe,
Yeah.
and then I saw her doing that when she was like second third grade, like on her own, and I'm like,
Wow.
oh great, that's awesome, we instilled this and it works so well. um and like I said, there's different routines for breathing techniques, and you can look up whatever one works for you and use it. Whether you use it, I try to do um deep breathing right before I do a hard workout for sure. Like, okay, this is coming, this is going to push me a little bit, it's going to, and the funny thing is, because people laugh, because they're like, my clients especially, that they're like, oh my gosh, I got to that second to last rep and I just didn't want to do it, but you're out here and you're pushing me, and you're yelling at me, you're helping me out, and you help me through it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm my own coach for my athletics. And so it's like, when I hit that point, because I do, when I'm like, okay, I'm on the second lesser, I really want, I could just go to my phone and rewrite the workout and cut that off and be like, I'm done. But I don't, because I know it's what I need. It's what I told myself beforehand. This is what I'm going to do. Right. And so going back to the discipline of it, like, I've told
Mm.
myself beforehand, I'm going to eat this way. I've told myself beforehand, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do these steps, and I agree. I love waking up and reading early, and not from your phone, but from a book, like not from an electronic device. Reading before you go to bed, and before you go to bed, being important to like read something that's inspirational, read something that's
Yeah.
um,
Nourishing the mind.
exactly, like, or something that is topic related to what you do or what you want your mission to be, so
Yeah.
that it's, because you can go to sleep and like think about all this stuff, and it's been proven, it's crazy that you can go to sleep, and if you're reading stuff about, especially if you've got an issue that you can't unlock, um whether it's something at work, or you're just like, I can't figure out how to get this next step of this project to go, or whatever, like, reading stuff, not necessarily about that specific project, but about your universe, your whatever it is, like, it will help you unlock that in your sleep. You'll wake up and you'll be like, oh, I figured it out,
Yeah. I love
because
it. I
your
love
mind's
when the
still
next day you
working.
wake up with a different
Yeah.
perception, different
Yeah.
mindset. Something's shifted. I get that all the
Yeah.
time.
And but it's purposeful, like, you have to put those steps in place,
Yeah.
and that takes discipline, like I said. So like, a lot of people think, that I'm a health coach and I do, but I'm like, really, I just teach people how to be disciplined with whatever step of their life they need to be disciplined in.
Yeah.
And that's the true key. And so that's how, I've gotten to be where I am. That's how I've gotten the success that I've had as an athlete, the success that the nutrition's brought me, the success I've had as coaching. Like, it's all just because I teach people how to be disciplined in what they want to be able to accomplish.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And it becomes easy. It becomes who you are and the way of life. Like people look at us and say,
yep,
wow, it's so extreme in their eyes to some people. We forget because it is just a way of life. We get up,
yeah,
we do certain routine, you run, you do a lot of things that people are like, what? And we have all the same hours, same,
right,
time of the day. We just choose where we're disciplined in what we know is going to give us a peak performance. That I always just call it
right,
that special edge. And
yeah,
I'm glad we've talked about because it's not just about the food. It's a big
right,
part of obviously we eat it every day. Sometimes I'm just like, that's why I love the fruit. I'm like, it's so easy and quick and simple because I want to get on
hmm,
with my life. I've got other things
right,
to do. I don't use food to be numbing, distracting, or so even
right,
sometimes socializing, which is nice at times. But really, to look at food is to nourish. We want to enjoy
yeah,
it. Fruits are sweet. That's what we're
yep,
attracted to naturally. When we get rid of all the junk and the toxic foods, you
hmm,
gravitate. You put mangoes or your fruits, the melons,
yep,
or you put a lamb or a cow next to you. Which one are you going to go eat? You're going to eat the
yeah,
delicious fruit. Even with kale or salads, you're going to choose the fruit over anything.
right,
You've done a run. You've just done a
right,
10K run. You come back and out of those,
yep,
or even you leave it a couple of days, you haven't eaten, which you're
hmm,
naturally going to gravitate to.
right,
As humans,
yep,
if we get back to basic, and that I'm glad we really touched on that, the basics, just getting back to simplicity, back to
yep,
nature, and keeping it, yes, don't overcomplicate it, and then bringing
yep.
in the tools to help you get to that point, which are going to serve all aspects of your life, and look at
Oh
where
yeah,
you've achieved your success. And it just
yeah.
it just ripples. It's a ripple effect.
Oh, it totally is. And like, I never would have expected to write a book.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, in fourth grade, I almost failed reading. Like, so like I
Wow.
never would have expected to write a book. And now I've written two. And so it's like, but it's because of that discipline piece of like, oh, well, and okay, I've got a story to tell, or people need to know this stuff.
Yeah.
And so, and I've got another one that I'm sort of like drafting out.
Brilliant.
Um, but to go back to the like what's really interesting is that, and I see it in my kids. I've got a 12-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl. And so yeah, do they have their, and we don't force the the plants only. We don't force the plant-based or vegan meals on them. Uh, of course, when they're home, that's what they get,
Yeah.
for the most part. But like my son, they both went to camp this past week, and so they're gone for the whole week. And we were like, you know what? They're going to serve you, eat what you want, like,
Let them come.
you
Yeah.
know. And of course, my daughter, the first thing she does, we pick her up. She goes, "Can we stop somewhere and I get a salad?" I'm like, "Yeah,
Oh,
we can." And they
yeah.
had salad stuff there, but she's like, "I just really want a salad." Um, but one of the things we instituted with them really early was of course a variety of fruits and vegetables. But a rule in our house is like, if you tell me that you're hungry, I'm going to say we just had our meal, it's not time, whatever. Like, but if you say I'm hungry, can I have a piece of fruit? Go get a piece of fruit.
Mm,
Like,
yeah.
no problem. Like, go get a piece of fruit. And I know that it's doing two things. One, in what it's doing to them internally, right? And so how it's nutritiously for them. Um, but two, it's setting that habit of, okay, if I'm hungry, I can get a piece of fruit. I know that's going to satisfy me because it always does at home.
Yeah.
Um, and between that and when you mentioned kale, it made me think my family absolutely, like, I don't anymore because it's cooked, but as far as the way we put kale chips, we make our own kale chips, and
Yeah. Well, better.
my wife pulls it out of the oven, puts it on top of the stove, and literally will be gone before the
Yeah.
thing is cold. Like it's like
Yeah.
gone, and all four of us just down in it.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, and so it's like a running joke that it like we have to make one for everybody to do that, and then we make another one that goes with the meal, like
Yeah.
because it won't make it to the table, you know.
Yeah. But
And
what
people think we're
amazing.
nuts, but the
Yeah.
kids love it, and it's like if you
Amazing.
going back to one of the things you said, if you feed yourself the right way and you avoid the crap, then your body's going to gravitate to those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does, it
So,
gets easier. Amazing.
oh yeah,
Yeah, it's so good that you're giving that, just giving them a really great start and let them, yeah, I
yeah,
like that non-control because it can, when you're so passionate about how food does affect us, and you're seeing them go into the world,
right.
that, it pulls on you. And I see there's
Oh
conflict
yeah,
in a lot of families, and but you have to let that go because the majority of the time they're at home, giving them your educate, you're doing your best. You can only do your best,
yep,
but let them,
yep,
yeah, let them spread their wings, let them find their own way. But encourage,
right,
and naturally you would when you're embodied in it, and they see you inspire. They're inspired
right,
by it. They will maybe
yep,
they might need to go their own way, but yeah, having that, that's just a metaphor of life, is surrendering, let go of the
yep.
control. I've definitely been in a control mode this week. We're moving, and I think the practice I need to embody is, yeah, I keep reminding myself, just let go. We can't control everything, but we can control what
Right,
we do, and how
yeah,
we are putting ourselves out in the world. So,
right.
and yes, you've got two amazing books. So
Yes,
they're on your website. Can
they are, and they're on Amazon.
Yeah,
So
Amazon.
Confidence Through Health is the first one, and No More Sugar Coating is the second one.
Amazing.
And that one's not necessarily just about food. It's sort of a little play on, because it's definitely got some nutrition and information in there. But it's also sort of like what we talked about, a little bit of mindfulness, and it's taking the sugar coating off your life and living your life and not being afraid to do that. And so, you know, it's very obvious if you live nutritionally and exercise wise, if you live the way that the majority of society lives, you will not be healthy. And so you have to take that sugar coating off and go like, okay, I'm going to be my own person. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to be healthy and I'm going to eat a better way and I'm going to exercise the way I know I need to. Not necessarily the way I do, because I know I'm extreme. I'm an extreme athlete, but like everybody needs to have some movement in their life so that their
Yeah,
body, will continue to work for them as they get older. So
yeah. Amazing. So they can find that all at your website and obviously Amazon. I'll put all
yes,
that in the description box below. Is that
yeah.
confidencethroughhealth.com?
They can go there. They can go to allinhealthandwellness.com. Either one.
Yep. And
Yep.
you've got your merchandise. You're wearing the
Yep. I
t-shirt
got the
now.
yep. I got the
Amazing.
t-shirt on.
Love it.
So
Woo.
um yeah,
All in.
and it's it's neat because I do help so many different people. Like somebody asked me the other day, like, oh well, what do you do really? And I'm like, oh my gosh, do you have 10 minutes? Because there's so many different aspects, because there's so many different aspects of how nutrition impacts your life, how exercise impacts your life, how your thoughts impact your life. Um, and so
Mhm.
going through all those things, it really does, I don't try to imagine or pretend that I can help every single person out there, but I want to try to help every single person out there.
Yeah.
And so, that's the goal.
Yeah, and very, yeah, a great like start is to get some mentorship, some guidance at
Mm-hmm.
least, just to set you on that path. And you've got the
Yep.
experience, you live and breathe it, you've child, you've done a lot of things.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, always inspired those that are, like we say, extreme. They're not really extreme,
Yeah.
but it's just
Right.
wow. They're obviously they're killing it in what they're doing, and living a very mindful, conscious life.
Yeah.
And that's who I'm
Yep.
attracted to. And those are those people that if they're living and breathing what they say, that is where, yeah, I'm super more
Yeah.
um yeah, attracted to. So
Yeah.
fantastic. So all that information, yeah, if you want got any parting words for those that, maybe probably more towards the beginners, they really want it, they're
Right.
motivated, but there's just some barriers, there's some blocks. What inspiring parting words can you share?
Well, I think like I already talked about, it was just like if you make a mistake, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. Like
Mm,
It's okay.
Yeah.
You're going to make, and that's really how you're going to learn, um, your way through it, and that, and try not to make too many big, huge
Yeah.
decisions all at once, right? Like,
Yeah.
and like one of the things that people come to me and they're like, okay, I just got out of the doctor's office or whatever this is, and I gotta change my life. Like, help me change my life. I'm like, okay, we're gonna change one thing,
Yeah.
right? And we're gonna get that set, and then we'll change another. And so it's like, pick one thing that you can do and do well and be successful at,
Yeah.
and start there so that it'll build the confidence and it'll build that discipline muscle of like, okay, if I can do that, then I can tackle this next one. But do all that knowing that if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. You can start right back up. Everything's gonna be okay. Make sure you have somebody that's in your corner cheering you on,
Mm.
and keep moving on.
It may take years, and I know for many is
Yeah,
the impatience. I was definitely impatient, but just allow that to allow it. Maybe that's the one thing I practice patience. That was
right.
my biggest thing.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, practice patience and just enjoy it. Learn about,
Yep.
developing yourself and getting empowered. And that's why your books are fantastic because they're empowering and you get so many
Yep.
shifts and those nuggets that can really on it, like you just read one thing in a chapter and it can change your whole, not even just your
Oh
day,
yeah.
but your trajectory. This is
Yeah.
why I love reading. I'm a big reader and
Yeah.
listening to these podcasts and listening to
Yeah.
others that are just rocking it. So thank
Yeah.
you for what you're doing, what you're sharing. You're
Oh, of
amazing. I'm
course.
glad we've connected. I'm so grateful
Yeah.
that you've come on our channel. So many amazing nuggets, and I know many of you guys in the audience that are going to get so many shifts from this. So if you do want to know more for Jerry, check his website out. So it's in the description box. Jerry, we always end on the be, feel, and stay rawlicious at the end of my
Yeah.
interviews. So would you like to do that with me? And I'll go over it, and we'll do it in three. So
Sure.
we say be, feel, stay rawlicious. Are you ready?
Cool. Yes, ma'am.
All of it. Okay, after three, 1, 2, 3. Be,
Be,
feel,
feel,
stay,
stay,
rawlicious.
rawlicious.
And we do a kiss.
Yeah. Nice.
You can do a
Awesome.
little, you can just have a do,
There we
yay!
go. Love
Thank
it.
you so much.